So in this problem, we are being asked to write a calculator that computes the sum of the cubes of a set of sequences, where each sequence is just the first n integers. So we're going to ask the user for the number of sequences to be calculated. So here they enter 4. We can see that it loops 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need some sort of loop, and this tells us how many times the loop goes. So I immediately think, okay, well, I know how many times the loop is going, so a for loop is probably the way to go. And I'm turning a number into something that I loop over, so range seems like a good idea here. So I need to get something, enter the total number of sequences. It says you do not need to match the output, so I'm not even going to try. I'll just say num equals int input, and this is going to be for I in range. Maybe I'll give myself a little bit more room. I haven't even really fully read the problem yet. I'm just immediately jumping into the parts that seem clearest to me from the very structure of the problem. That I've done this so far. I've gotten the total number of sequences, and I'm iterating over it for I in range num. So now inside that loop, it looks like I prompt for something else, right? For each sequence, prompt the user for the upper bound. All right, so I'll say bound. Bound equals, it looks from the example like it's an integer, int input. Then calculate the sum of the cubes from 1 to n. In order to do that, it sounds like I need another loop. I need another loop, and I'll use the accumulator pattern. And I will do some things like, say, the sum. The basic accumulator pattern, as I initialize the sum to 0, I have a for loop for j. Well, I'll choose something else. For x in range bound now. I'm looking at this. It starts at 1 and goes to n, where n is the bound. Certainly it doesn't matter if I start mine at 0, because if I do 0 to the cube plus 1 to the cube plus 2 to the cube, it's still mathematically the same. But I should add 1 to the bound so that I include n. Like if this was, if n was 8 or something, I would want to have all 1 cubed, 2 cubed, 3 cubed, up to 8 cubed, which I'll only get to if I do range 9. So inside this, I can calculate the sum of all those cubes, right? To say the sum equals the sum plus the number that comes out is called x, and I can cube it like that. So I've just cubed that number, added into my sum, and iterated. And then at some point I need to output, right? Print this sum. That would go outside the loop, after the loop. Print sum. So everything I've done in red is kind of my most basic accumulator pattern, like where I initialize the variable, I have a for loop, and I modify that accumulator variable in some way, and then I use it after the loop to print it. And I am doing that for each iteration of this loop. The red logic is the logic that is accomplishing this, right? I have my enter bound is happening in the loop, and then the sum of cubes is what's happening with the red part of my loop. Maybe I'll do it this way, because the blue logic is the logic that is looping, and the red logic is the logic that is a loop, but it's the thing that is calculating the sum. So I will underline sum of cubes in red. I hope that makes sense and is clear and gives you some insight into like how I think about it and dissect the problem.